Yo, listen up, family, because what I am about to walk you through right now is going to reset every conversation you thought you knew about this rap game. It is July of 2026. The fireworks from the 4th are still hanging in the sky, and while the rest of America is out here flipping burgers, Drake is somewhere in a bulletproof safe room watching his own legacy dissolve in real time. That is not a joke. That is not algorithm bait. That is the documented reality of the biggest pop star in modern rap history exactly 24 months to the day after Kendrick Lamar dropped the Not Like Us visual on planet Earth. And I promise you, before this video is over, you will see why hip-hop scholars, streaming analysts, and every serious critic in the game are already calling this the most surgical assassination of a rap career anyone has ever witnessed. So before we go one inch further, do me a solid, smash that like button until it bruises, hit subscribe if you have not already, and drop the word DETHRONED in the comments so I know you rolled with me from the very first sentence. Because what is happening to Drake right now, family, is not a fall from grace. It is not a bad quarter. It is a cultural extinction event with Kendrick's fingerprints all over the weapon, and by the end of this you will understand exactly how a man from Compton pulled off the cleanest coup this genre has ever seen. Let me get straight into it, because there is no polite way to tell this story. Not Like Us has not aged even 1 second. 2 full years. 24 calendar months of birthdays, weddings, cookouts, funerals, playoff runs, TikTok dances, high school proms, block parties, and championship parades, and that record is still nailed to every speaker on this planet like it dropped last Tuesday. Diss tracks in this culture are supposed to have a half-life. They burn hot for a summer. Everybody memorizes the punchlines, and then they quietly slip into the archive next to old mixtape freestyles. This one refuses to leave. It refuses to fade off the charts. It refuses to fade off the culture. And it refuses to give Drake even 24 hours of peace, and the reason for that is not luck, family. The reason for that is a level of strategic execution the industry has almost never seen from an artist at Kendrick's level. Kendrick and his camp are running a chess match at Grandmaster tier while Drake is out here flipping the checkers board every time he loses a piece and then calling his attorney to file paperwork about it. Rewind to May of this year. Kendrick's team quietly slid back into the streaming dashboards and refreshed the metadata on Not Like Us. They rewrote the tags. They rewrote the descriptors. They basically relaunched the record inside the algorithm without releasing a single new note of music. To the average listener, that sounds like paperwork. To anyone who actually understands how streaming works in 2026, that is a nuclear-grade maneuver, family, because it tells every algorithm on the planet, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon, TikTok, to keep treating that song like a brand new release and to keep pushing it into fresh ears every single morning. That is not fan service. That is industrial warfare. That is Kendrick keeping his cleat glued to Drake's throat 24 months after the initial knockout, and he is doing it without even breaking a sweat. Now sit with that for a second. Try to imagine what that actually feels like from Drake's perspective. Imagine being one of the 10 most recognizable humans on Earth, and every single time you walk into a restaurant, a hotel lobby, an elevator, a barbershop, a gym, a concourse tunnel at an NBA arena, the loudest sound in the room is a song where every stranger is calling you a certified predator in the most public sense of the word. Imagine your own kids one day hearing that hook at a school dance. Imagine your bodyguards suddenly finding the floor real interesting when it comes on in the elevator. That is Drake's actual lived reality in July of 2026, and it is not TMZ gossip. It is documented. Kendrick took Drake's own reflection and forged it into a weapon, and that mirror has not cracked one time in 2 full years. And listen, before we go any deeper into this rabbit hole, tap that subscribe button right now, because what I am about to break down next is the exact chapter that most channels are too scared to actually put on camera. Let us keep it moving. You cannot even begin to grasp how bad Drake's 2026 has become without traveling back to 2025, because 2025 is the year the industry officially picked its side, and it did not pick Toronto. Drake did not just lose the streets. He did not just lose the internet. He lost the entire cultural infrastructure in 1 calendar year. When the 2025 Grammy Awards rolled around, Kendrick Lamar walked in and walked out with 5 statues in his hand. Record of the Year. Song of the Year. For a record that was engineered from the very first bar to functionally end another man's career. Chew on that for a second, family. The Recording Academy, the same institution that spent the entire 2010s politely handing Drake Best Rap Album while pretending everything was fine, turned around and awarded its highest honors to a song that literally spells out Drake's alleged sins in full complete sentences on beat. That was not an award. That was the industry engraving Drake's obituary in solid 24-karat gold. Then came February 9th of 2025. Super Bowl 59 halftime show. Kendrick Lamar stood on the biggest stage humanity has ever built, in front of more than 130 million viewers, and made Not Like Us the emotional peak of the entire performance. He stared straight down the camera. He smirked. He let 70,000 people fill in the punchlines for him. That was not a concert, family. That was a globally broadcast humiliation ritual sponsored by the NFL, and every uncle in America was singing along in the living room. After that Sunday night, the ambiguity was gone. The corporations, the sponsors, the NFL, the algorithm, and the culture had all quietly co-signed Kendrick as the winner, and Drake could no longer even pretend the war was still on. Meanwhile, out on the West Coast, Kendrick had already flipped that beef into something way bigger than himself. Rewind one more time to June 19th of 2024. The pop-out at the Kia Forum. Bloods and Crips, generations of rivals who had spent decades burying each other, all standing on one stage in one uniform, and a man from Compton pulled that off by handing them a common enemy to rally around. That enemy was Drake. Kendrick performed Not Like Us 5 times that night. 5. That is not a diss track anymore, family. That is a movement anthem. That is citywide therapy set to a mustard bounce. And that unity has not cracked once since. West Coast solidarity in 2026 is still sitting at a level the region has not seen in 3 full decades, and every drop of it traces straight back to one man from Compton who handed them a villain and gave them a reason to lock arms. Now, while Kendrick has been running the longest and most decorated victory lap in modern rap history, Drake dropped a project called Iceman in June of 2026, and I need you to sit down for what the industry is actually saying about it, because it is uglier than the headlines have been willing to say. It is bad, family. Genuinely, painfully bad. The commercial numbers are nowhere near what pre-2024 Drake used to post in his sleep. The critical reception is somewhere between polite silence and outright mockery. The consensus among people who actually study this genre is that Iceman does not sound like a step forward. It sounds like a man reminding the world he still records music while his real full-time job has quietly become filing motions in a Manhattan courthouse. And you cannot ignore the timing. Investigative pieces that landed on June 29th of 2026 are now tracing Drake's entire defensive posture back to the Control verse from over a decade ago. That is the same verse where Kendrick told every rapper breathing he was coming for the crown. Drake has carried that chip for 12 years, but the pen is empty now. There are no more counterpunches. No more subliminals that land. So Drake is trying to use the federal court system to accomplish what his bars could not, and every serious hip-hop head on planet Earth sees it. Critics are dragging Iceman because it feels less like a body of work and more like a legal press release delivered over trap drums. The comparisons to Kendrick's G-Nex from late 2024 are brutal and earned. G-Nex turned Kendrick into the undisputed emperor of this generation. It sold out arenas around the globe. It broke streaming records. It quietly remastered the entire West Coast sound. Iceman, on the other hand, feels like a folder of leftover tracks that missed the cut for a stronger album, and you can hear the desperation baked into every mix. Bitter subliminals aimed at people who moved on 18 months ago. Expensive visuals that feel emotionally hollow. Guest features that cost a fortune and land flat. Drake is fighting a 2024 war in a 2026 world, and every bar on Iceman confirms it. Hold up, family, because before we get to the section that is genuinely going to make your jaw unhinge, do me one quick favor. Tell me in the comments right now, are we witnessing the slowest, most publicly documented downfall in modern rap history, or is Drake secretly cooking a comeback nobody sees coming? Do not sugarcoat it. Give me the raw take. Then let us keep it pushing, because what I am about to walk you through next is the exact chapter where Drake stopped being a disrespected superstar and officially became a full-blown cautionary tale. Because we now have to talk about the most humiliating stretch of this entire saga. Drake has officially entered his litigant era. His legal team is out here launching massive lawsuits at Universal Music Group, and Spotify, like a federal judge, is somehow going to sign an order hand-delivering Drake his reputation back on a silver plate. This is the most desperate arc any modern rap superstar has ever put on public display. Drake is standing in front of United States federal court arguing that a secret corporate conspiracy exists specifically to inflate Kendrick's numbers and specifically to injure his own feelings. Read that sentence back slowly. The central claim in the lawsuit alleges that UMG deployed underground bot farms to fabricate more than 700 million streams on Not Like Us. 700 million. That is the number Drake's attorneys are trying to sell to a judge with a straight face. Universal has already fired back, and their statement is savage in the quietest way imaginable. They basically said the idea that a label the size of UMG would pay to sabotage the reputation of Drake, one of their own most profitable artists on the roster, is not just false, it is logically impossible. And they are correct. Anyone with a working set of ears and a data plan already knows the streets were spinning, Not Like Us on a loop from the day it dropped without a single bot lifting a finger. The crowd sang every word at the pop-out. The crowd sang every word at the Super Bowl. The crowd sang every word at every festival on 6 different continents. You cannot fake that kind of penetration with a server rack in Estonia. The irony here is thick enough to chew, family. This is the same man who spent the last decade bragging in every interview about his chart placements, his first-week numbers, and his diamond plaques. He loved every algorithmic tailwind the industry ever sent his way. But the second he loses a race on those exact same charts, suddenly the entire system is rigged, everything is fake, and the whole business is a scam. He worshipped the game while the game was worshipping him. Now that the game has picked a new champion, he wants to torch the entire arena to the ground. He did squeeze out one small legal win when he settled with iHeartMedia back in 2025 after his attorneys surfaced some internal documents about pay-for-play arrangements. He tried to spin that settlement into hard proof that the entire industry was a coordinated hit job aimed at his head, but nobody outside his most delusional corner of the fandom is actually buying that framing. Even with those receipts in hand, no rational person can look at the last 24 months and honestly say Kendrick did not clean Drake out in front of the whole planet. You cannot use bots to make grandmothers in Atlanta rap along at a cookout. You cannot use bots to make teenagers in Tokyo learn every syllable phonetically. You cannot use bots to unite Compton gangs on one stage. That saturation is organic, family, and organic is exactly what Drake stopped being years ago. Even the legal experts who have zero dog in this rap fight are calling the defamation angle a total non-starter. The specific claim that Kendrick's Super Bowl performance was somehow actionable in a court of law is being openly laughed at in law school classrooms across the country. You cannot sue another artist for outperforming you on a stage. You cannot sue a rapper for rapping. That is not how the First Amendment works, and it is not how hip-hop has ever worked. In this culture, you get out-rapped, and then you go right back to the booth. You do not go back to the courthouse. Trying to sue Kendrick for performing a diss record at a halftime show is not a legal strategy, family. It is a public confession on the record that you cannot compete on the microphone anymore. And listen, this is the exact point where the OVO camp starts looking straight up panicked, because moving from the recording studio to a federal courtroom is not a subtle pivot. It is a full white flag with a spotlight on it. It is a public admission that Drake already knows he cannot beat Kendrick with bars, so he is trying to beat him with billable hours. He is trying to use a briefcase to accomplish what his pen could not pull off back in 2024, and every hip-hop head watching from the sidelines can see it clear as daylight. The entire OVO machine now looks like a boardroom in full crisis mode, scrambling for any technicality that might explain to their shareholders why the culture turned on them the exact second the playing field got level. It is a devastating optic for a machine that used to feel untouchable. And before we shift into the part where we unpack how Kendrick actually reset this whole industry back in 2024, I need to hear from you. Drop it in the comments right now. Is Drake actually innovating with these lawsuits, or is this the biggest white flag any rap superstar has ever waved in real time? No cap. Give me the truth. And while your hands are already moving, smash that like button and slap subscribe if you have not already, because this story only gets richer as we walk through the timeline. Alright, let us step inside the war room now. Historians are already looking at the window between March and May of 2024 as the Great Rap War, and every serious critic in the game agrees it is the single most important stretch in 21st century music history. This was not a squabble on Twitter. This was not two rappers trading subliminals over playlists. This was a full-scale power realignment of the entire genre. The Big Three era officially ended in those weeks. The old hierarchy collapsed under its own weight, and when the smoke finally cleared, Kendrick Lamar was standing alone on top of the mountain, telling the world it was just Big Him. Kendrick spent the next 60 days proving why he deserved to be up there alone, while Drake made every single strategic mistake a superstar can possibly make. We can never forget the disaster of the tailor-made freestyle. That was the exact moment Drake decided to use AI-generated vocals of Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg to try to speak on Kendrick's behalf. Real hip-hop heads still point to that decision as the precise second Drake lost the plot. You do not touch the legacies of West Coast icons like Tupac. You do not use dead legends as puppets in your petty argument. It was disrespectful. It was corny. It was a full-blown cultural miscalculation, and it left a stain on Drake's resume that no legal filing is ever going to bleach out. Then came the truly heavy artillery. The allegations Kendrick placed on Drake's head, allegations about predatory behavior toward younger women and about the darker corners of the OVO operation, created a permanent cloud over Drake's public image. Whether you personally believe every single accusation or not is irrelevant. The point is that Kendrick did not just paint Drake as a bad rapper. Kendrick painted him as a potential danger to the culture and to the youth. And because those images were delivered inside music that hit as hard as anything the genre has ever produced, they burned themselves into the collective public memory. That is why no volume of legal paperwork will ever fully clean the slate. You cannot subpoena a memory. You cannot serve a summons on a hook that the whole planet already knows by heart. Kendrick won this thing, family, because he chose to bring people together while Drake was choosing lawyers. Kendrick lifted an entire region while Drake was drafting motions. Kendrick sold out arenas from Los Angeles to London while Drake was standing in a federal filing window in Manhattan. Sitting here in July of 2026, staring at the full mosaic, it is more obvious than ever who actually walked away with the soul of this genre. One of these men is moving the culture forward with sold-out tours, 5 Grammys in a night, and a Super Bowl halftime performance on his mantle. The other one is trapped inside a 2024 loop, still trying to prove he did not lose a fight the entire world watched him lose in real time. You can hire every attorney in every zip code in North America. You can file every injunction a legal budget can bankroll. But hip-hop is a truth game at its core, and the truth gets felt by the people who actually love this music. Those are two currencies Drake simply cannot purchase anymore. While Drake keeps fighting the legal war, Kendrick keeps winning the cultural war, and the culture always gets the final vote. Kendrick is representing his city, his coast, and his generation with his head lifted. Drake is hiding behind a legal team, hoping a judge will hand him a laminated piece of paper that says he is still the man. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. And every anniversary of Not Like Us from here on out is going to feel like another shovel of dirt landing on the same grave. Now let us zoom out for a second, family, because there is a bigger cultural lesson unfolding in real time. We are living through the very first era in modern music history where authenticity is now worth more than raw commercial numbers. That is a massive shift, and Drake picked exactly the wrong decade to lose his authenticity account. He built his empire in the 2010s when streaming counts alone could crown a king, but we are in a brand new era now. Fans are sharper. Algorithms are more sensitive to organic engagement. Cultural credibility is now trackable in ways it never was before. And once you lose that credibility, no marketing budget on earth can buy it back. Drake used to run this industry with a remote control. Now he is being reduced to suing people over his own lack of relevance, and it is one of the saddest sights this genre has ever had to look at. And the wildest piece of it, family, the piece historians are going to write entire essays about years from now, is that Kendrick did not need to say a single word during any of this. He did not run a press tour. He did not book a sit-down with a podcaster. He just kept releasing music. He kept selling out arenas. He kept updating his metadata like a quiet assassin behind the glass. And he kept letting Drake self-destruct on camera in front of an audience of millions. That is a level of confidence you can only reach after you have already won. That is a champion who does not even bother to shadowbox anymore because his opponent has already tapped out on the mat. Meanwhile, Drake keeps releasing music that feels more like a courtroom exhibit than an album. Iceman is not a body of work, family. It is evidence. It is a mood board of bitter subliminals and defensive posturing, and every serious critic in this genre can see straight through the varnish. The gap between these two men has never been wider. One is expanding the culture outward. The other is trying to sue his way back inside of it. And in a game that was built on the ability to say what you mean and mean what you say, that gap is the only stat that actually matters anymore. There is also a psychological angle nobody is talking about loud enough. Drake seems structurally unable to accept that he lost. Every move he has made in the last 24 months has been the move of a man who cannot process defeat. New album drops, time to distract from court dates. High-budget visuals designed to make him look like he is still on the throne. Subliminals aimed at a rival who is not even engaged anymore. It is the behavior of a former champion who cannot admit the belt has been passed. And in a genre that respects a rapper taking the L on the chin, that inability to accept the loss is arguably more damaging than the loss itself. Now compare that to Kendrick. Kendrick took every single hit Drake threw during that beef, and he answered every one of them with surgical precision. He never once complained the game was unfair. He never once accused the platforms of rigging his numbers. He never once ran to a courtroom. He walked into the booth and did the thing that rappers are supposed to do. He rapped better. And when the smoke finally lifted, he walked out of that fight with the crown, the trophies, the Super Bowl, the tour, the entire culture, and the moral high ground all bundled into one clean sweep. That is not a fluke, family. That is exactly what this culture is engineered to reward, and Kendrick understood the assignment while Drake was still shopping around for lawyers. And look, before I close this out, I want to give a small piece of honest advice to everybody still riding hard for Drake on the timeline. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the validation. Enjoy the fact that a grown superstar cares enough about you to like your tweets at 3 in the morning. Because at the end of the day, that is what you were doing this for. You were doing it for the acknowledgement of one man, not for the love of the music itself. And the love of the music is why the rest of us are actually here. That is why Kendrick's records keep growing legs long after the release week. That is why Not Like Us refuses to die. That is why an entire generation is going to sit their kids down one day and tell them about the summer the West Coast took hip-hop back with both hands. You cannot fake that with reposts. You cannot litigate your way into that kind of legacy. So here is where we stand, family. In July of 2026, Drake is still fighting a war he already lost 24 months ago. Kendrick is still enjoying the longest victory lap in modern rap history. Not Like Us is still dominating every speaker on the planet, and that metadata refresh in May mathematically guaranteed it will keep doing exactly that for another full decade. The Grammy sweep in 2025 sealed the industry verdict. The Super Bowl 59 halftime show sealed the cultural verdict. The pop-out at the Kia Forum sealed the street verdict. And the lawsuits, the desperation, the Iceman rollout, all of it has now sealed Drake's own contribution to his downfall in his own signature. There is no version of the story where Drake walks away from this clean. There is no comeback arc quietly waiting in the wings. The crown was not stolen from him. The crown was taken from him in front of every witness this culture has, and it is never getting shipped back to Toronto. Before you close this tab, do this one thing for me. Tell me in the comments right now. Do you think Drake has one legitimate leg to stand on with any of these allegations? Or is he officially the corniest legend this game has produced for taking Kendrick and UMG to court over a diss record? Tell me if Iceman deserves more respect than the internet is willing to give it. Tell me if there is even one universe where Drake fully recovers, or if July of 2024 was the last real summer he ever had on the throne. Give me your honest, uncut, unfiltered take. No cap. And while you're typing that out, tap the like button and smash subscribe if you have not already, because I am cooking up more of these breakdowns every single week and you absolutely do not want to miss the next chapter of this saga. Peace, family. Stay dangerous. Stay authentic. And never forget, the culture always gets the last vote in the end.